So welcome to Edoras, the capital of Rohan, and here is the Golden Hall, and this is a siege, and 0.91 is out, so I thought what better way to showcase that than with a slightly bigger siege. I want to do some more of these, also bigger scale scenarios as well, because I think they are a little bit more entertaining to watch, and also you can talk about more things than in simple pitch battles all at once. So let's go through the army compositions. Of course we have Rohan, and Rohan are a rather interesting faction on the defense in terms of sieges, because it's not really something you picture them being particularly good at, especially in vanilla they weren't very good, but they do have several units now, especially something like the Helmhammers, which can help them weather the storm in a siege such as this. We may as well go through Rohan and their allies' armies at the same time, mainly because they are so tightly packed together. There are Shield Maidens. That's a very good choice. You know, if you can target the right unit with their javelins, they're going to do a lot of damage. Royal Guard, Dismounted Royal Guard, you know, there's a lot of good units that Rohan can use on the defense. There are also the Catapult. The defenders only have one Catapult, but this is still a very, very good pick on Edoras because you can very easily attack the attackers with it as they move in. There's a lot of Helmingars as well. That's a good choice as well. They're not especially good as archers. Rohan don't have fantastic archers, but in this case, on the defense, it's very useful to have them up here at the back. Dol Amroth are their ally. They've got Swan Knights. There are Marshals of the Red in here. There are a lot of units of Dol Amroth pikemen. This is just a mess up here of units that they're going to use as reinforcements as they come in. Tirithea Marksmen, they're pretty damn good as well. You know, the archer force of Dol Amroth is going to be better than the archer force of Rohan is, but nonetheless, there are also some more Marshals of the Red down here. Yorling Swordsmen as well. The Yorling Swordsmen aren't fantastic. They're honestly one of the worst sort of men-at-arms tiers units that you can get, but the Yorling Axemen, which Rohan do have some of them mixed in as well, are slightly better. Dol Amroth men-at-arms are very good. Decent armor on them, they'll do very well. There's some Tarnastian Guard over here. Yorling Militia with stakes. The stakes, you know, you wouldn't expect the stakes to be particularly good, but you never know. They can pay for themselves if the enemy has cavalry they try to charge into the gates. And over here it's much more the same. You've got more Dol Amroth men-at-arms, more Tarnastian Guard, some Rohan Spearmen, and over here I believe you have some Yorling Axemen. Yes, so that's them. And then my army is over here. I'm playing as the Orcs of the Misty Mountains, attacking of course, and I've brought a lot, well, I brought 3 units of Mount Nuruk archers and a catapult, and this really is what makes Edoras a little bit interesting, is the sense that it's rather similar to Osgiliath in the way that the attackers' range can be very potent for you, just as potent as it can be for the defenders if they're not careful. So it's very worth bringing some artillery if you're the attackers, as always, but it's also worth bringing archers. Sometimes if you run a more walled settlement, archers are honestly not really worth it because it's just pain to get them into position. But in this case, it's definitely worth it. I've got some heavy goblin infantry just to sort of trash fodder that I can send in. Black Watch Legion, you know, these units are going to be my more potent ones. Mount Nuruk Pikes, they're a decent pike unit. Black Uruks of the Mountains are a decent shock infantry unit without being spectacular. Orc Bodyguards, and then a couple of units of Blackback Berserkers and Mountain Trolls. So I've got a lot of shock units, and hopefully I'm going to be able to do a lot of damage. And the Misty Mountains can do a lot of damage in a short period of time. And that's what I was hoping for here. As for my ally, he's Rune. And this is, well, that's an interesting name, Medjets. Well, I'm clearly saying that wrong, but still. Someone from the Discord, and here we have a couple of units of Loknar Rim, pretty good archers, and he's also got units of Clan Crossbows, and I believe he's got some Dragon's Wrath crossbowmen mixed in here somewhere as well, and some Sapphire Bladesmen, so he's got a lot of pretty potent infantry units. He's brought more rams than me, which means obviously Edoras, another quirk of Edoras is you can use rams to break down the walls, so this is a pretty good idea. I only brought one because I was planning on just sort of bull rushing the enemy very quickly off the bat. Clan Warriors, you know, very low tier unit, but they're still gonna be clogging up the enemy, and Rohan's infantry is honestly not that much better. Clan Guard are better, good unit. Lok Flag Rim will be good for versus armor, so that's good against the Dol Amroth units in particular. More Flag Rim. The Lok Gamp Rim are very good as well. You know, I haven't used the Lok Gamp Rim in Reforged as much as I did in Vanilla, but they are still a very good unit. Again, a Catapult, a very good choice. He's got a bodyguard as well. This is pretty good because Rohan could well have brought cavalry on this map. And then back here, I believe this is the Dragon's Wrath Guildsman. So yes, that's another shock unit. So, without further ado, oh, I'm on speed 6 again. I do that way too often. So he's going to be moving in his units a little bit closer. Over on my side, though, I'm going to be firing straight away with my catapult and my archers. So my archers are not armor piercing or particularly accurate, but that doesn't really matter because the enemy are tightly packed together that I'm going to hit most of the time, and Rohan's units especially are not very well armored at all. So I'm going to get good kills here, provided I can. Well, they're near the wall, but honestly, just spraying in random directions is what the orcs do. So I'm just going to do that. The tightly packed units, though, will definitely favour my catapult as it attacks, and this was really my thinking. I wanted to do as much damage as I could early on off the bat, and some of his units ran through the wall, which is rather interesting. Sending up the ram as well, going to send it to knock down the gate and then charge through it. The Rohan spearmen won't stop many units quickly, but they're attacking with the catapult pretty early here, and they're attacking my heavy goblin infantry, which is not particularly good. They only have one catapult and they only have so much ammunition. They should definitely, if they're going to use it now, go for some of my more dangerous ones. Stuff like the Blackwatch Legion, which they can't really kill with the archers. They are attacking my men with their archers as well, to be fair, but it's not a particularly wise move to go for something like I suppose they are going for my catapult, but it's not worth it. They really should be going for my more dangerous infantry if they're going to do that, and honestly, on this map you should wait as Adarus. As Adarus as the defenders, the attackers are always going to blob. Over here on the other hand, there is a little bit more space for my ally to move in. Well, there's fewer units around here. There's also Yawling Militia, and this is not going to stand up long to a lot of Rune's infantry. There's a decent hit on the Tarnastian Guard. It's a decent spear unit, so we do want to get them out of the way. They do have decent armour. Just missing here. They do have a lot of scarier units though, like the Marshals of the Red, ready to come in on both sides. Over here there seems to be a few more units, but then that is to be expected. The Misty Mountains are orcs, so there's going to be more numbers coming at them. Now, interestingly enough, the gate is open, but it's kind of weird because these men are trying to get back in to rejoin their unit when they presumably glitched through the wall. And because the gate was open, I was just able to charge forward my infantry and go in, and then repurpose my ram to knock a hole in the wall to the side. Now the heavy goblin infantry, I'm just charging them in. They will not win. They will obviously die to a defense force as comprehensive as this. But it doesn't matter, I just want to occupy the enemy. And I can afford some losses. Like, I'm one of the orc factions, so I'm going to be able to try and wear down the enemy. This Yawling Axeman has taken some casualties, but honestly not that much. I'm arcing my shots. If I was paying more attention, I could have used my archers on some of these units back here. They would have got more hits. But it's not really all that worth it. And again, targeting my archers is not really worth it. You'd be much better off going for my infantry. That's where my danger is. My archers are honestly just there to get a few extra kills. He's sending in his Yawling Axeman, which is a good choice. The Yawling Axeman are good against the heavy goblin infantry. The heavy goblin infantry's usefulness is tied into their armour. There's a very large lorry outside. Anyway, back over here with Rune, we have the ram in place, one of the rams, and they are going to knock down several sections of the wall. This is good. And my ally has got a lot of decent units that can deal with stuff like the Tarnastian Guard. The Loke Flag Rim in particular will be very good. Stuff like the clan crossbows as well. Like, the runic crossbows are cheap, and crossbows pierce armor very nicely, so the fact that he's got more Dol Amroth units over here is not necessarily a bad thing, because he's more equipped to deal with it than I am. At least in his first wave. My initial wave is full of fodder, which will trade much more favourably against Rohirrim units, at least Rohirrim infantry. When you're on the defence on Adarus, particularly if you're playing as Rohan, it can be often worth it to bring some cheap cavalry. Expensive cavalry is a bit more of a risk, because while it is good, if you waste it, it is quite a lot of money down the drain. But cheap cavalry's charges can still... Oh man. Tarnastian Guard getting cooked. But cheap cavalry have a pretty decent charge all of their own. And here come the trolls. And they can pay for themselves much more easily, and they can be much more of an irritant to the attackers. But they didn't bring them here, which is understandable. You do want to have a bit more of a defence to you. these mountain trolls. I didn't back these mountain trolls up quickly enough. Trolls are much more of a shock unit. They need to be backed up quickly. And unfortunately for me, I didn't really do this. Now that was a devastating hit. It got some Yawling Axemen and a lot of these Tarnstein Guard. There's a lot of these blobs around which I'm able to do, and again I'm bringing my ram over here, so I'm opening up some holes in the walls, sending up a unit of Blackwatch Legion to try and secure my position. Also my archers are out of ammunition, so again I'm just using them as fodder like my heavy goblin infantry. I'm just trying to occupy them. They will get slaughtered, but it's not really that important. I just need to occupy them. My allies knocking a lot of holes in the walls. Again, these trolls are getting killed very, very quickly against spears that are in formation, so I should have backed them up. I should have held off a little bit longer and waited before my fodder infantry was ready to back them up. They would have been better served doing that. I would have done more damage. They would have lasted longer. So I've knocked 3 holes in the wall now, including the one at the gate. That was some friendly fire. That was unfortunate. So I do have multiple avenues of attack. Getting in this Blackwatch Legion now. So this is a unit that's not going to be going anywhere. They're a very, very tough unit. These arrows are going to do nothing to them. Really, it's going to take a shock unit to do significant damage to them, and unfortunately for me, Rohan have got decent shock units and the Marshals of the Red on the way. So Edoras is really a battle of choke points, and over here we can see Rune have got a bit more of a foothold in the enemy's stronghold than I have. These Tarnstein Guard are getting attacked by the Clan Guard. This is a pretty good engagement for the Clan Guard. It's really just the archers that are causing them to lose the battle. But Rune have got plenty more units to commit. The Flag Rim in particular will be very potent. Rune have got quite a lot of skirmishers, to be honest with you, as well. And this can work to our advantage as well, because Dol Amroth, you know, their armoured units are not going to stand up well to the Clan crossbows. Over here we have Yawling Swordsmen under attack by the Loknar Rim. And interestingly enough, they've tried to go outside the settlement here. This is not a fantastic move, if I'm honest. The Flag Rim will trade pretty effectively with the Dol Amroth men-at-arms, especially under this sort of archer fire. Still, my ally is making more noticeable inroads into the settlement than I am. They have managed to blob up on me pretty effectively and try to stop my brute force attack over here. I mean, look at this. This is a bit of a mess. We've got the Marshals of the Red coming in. These Mountain Uruk archers are obviously going to die very quickly, but I just wanted to throw them in, wear the enemy down before sending in my more elite units. This Blackwatch Legion is there in shield wall, so they're going to be difficult to dislodge. They're not going to do a lot of damage, but they will hold. Over here, meanwhile, I sent in some Mountain Uruk pikes, but unfortunately they were engaged before they could form up, which means they're getting slaughtered. So I'm deciding to commit some Black Uruks of the mountains. They're a very good unit, at least in this sort of situation, where they're going to be up against units that are relying more on their defence. There goes the enemy gate. Looks like the catapult dealt with that. So the Black Uruks of the mountains will trade effectively with the Dol Amroth men-at-arms. They're going to do a decent amount of damage. I like the way that all their swords are kind of like odd as well. Some of them have got like sort of more natty swords in addition to the sort of large Uruk-hai cleavers. Unfortunately, there are pikemen coming in, and if they're allowed to form up, they will manage to hold me back. This unit of pikes has basically been slaughtered, unfortunately. But I do have another unit of Mountain Uruk pikes coming in, and they will form up with the Black Uruks of the mountains and hopefully give me a more comprehensive line of attack here. Over here in the middle, just more heavy goblin infantry. They're kind of wavering and all tired. Again, doesn't really matter too much. They're just here to occupy the enemy for now. Again, stuff like the Yawling Axemen are shaken as well. They are a lower tier unit and they are easily routed, and in the face of this many orcs, this is going to be bad for them. The Blackwatch Legion unfortunately are being attacked in the side by Marshals of the Red, which means they are going to die out more quickly than I would have liked. This is where my... Ooh, that was a nice hit. This is where my advantage as the orc factions really comes in. I do have a lot of numbers, whereas the enemy will have slightly less, and they have had to compromise on their quality in more places than I have. I do think on huge unit scaling, which is what we're on, the advantage certainly swings to the orcs a little bit more. So that's worth saying. I think on large unit scaling, the orcs are a little bit worse off, but on huge, the amount of men they have in their unit certainly does help them. Lok Flag Rim getting into the sides of these Tarnstein Guard, and they're doing very well for themselves. They're a Tirithea marksman trying to clog up the gate and hold back the Lok Flag Rim. This is going to be very bad for them. probably not worth it, honestly, if they're not being backed up by anything. So it doesn't look like they're bringing... Well, they are bringing more units down, but it's only Helmingars. These pikemen might do a better job, but even so, at this point, it's kind of like a sinking ship, and there are only so many holes you can plug. And at this point, I would say, particularly on this front, it would be much more worth their time falling back to this hill. You know, you have a very effective choke point on Edoras, and you may as well use it. But it looks like they're trying to use multiple choke points to hold back Rune from getting into the settlement entirely, which, while admirable, is not really going to serve them in the long run, because they're just going to lose more men. They may well get more casualties inflicted on Rune, but I'm not sure it's going to be worth it for them in the end. They're bringing more units of pikes down. These pikes would be very, very difficult to dislodge on this hill. Over here, I still haven't made all that much progress. Over here, I have managed to set myself up a little bit more, though, which is good for me. These Dol Amroth men-at-arms and Dol Amroth pikemen against the Black Uruks of the mountains and Mountain Uruk pikes. I should win this in the long run. Unfortunately, there are some Tarnistian Guard at the back here, which may swing it in Dol Amroth's favour. I'm sending in some Orc bodyguards because I was actually getting forced back out of the gate. So I wanted to send in a more heavy-duty unit. The Orc bodyguard, of course, hit points. This Tirathea marksman at the front will very quickly lose to Orc bodyguards as well, so I will get more of a foothold in through the centre. Unfortunately, my Blackwatch Legion over here has very comprehensively been beaten by the Marshals of the Red. The Marshals of the Red are a very, very effective unit for Rohan. I'm not surprised to see them here. One unit that I am surprised not to see more of is the Riddermark Axemen, honestly. There's some rotting meat trying to send the Rohan units in particular routing. Dismounted Royal Guard, they really are sending more and more units down. They don't want me to get into the settlement, and honestly on my side I can see why. Because I've got less gaps in the wall, and I'm... You know, they've done a better job of keeping me in a line that's more effective to hold. So it might be worth their time actually keeping me outside the settlement. But back over here with Rune, they are losing ground. And they have more avenues to have to hold, and I think that it's not really worth it for them. Over here, this Loke Flagrim is doing very well. It was always going to trade very efficiently with Dol Amroth, but the runic infantry that's over, like Helmingars, are not going to beat Flagrim. Meanwhile, over here, these pikes over here haven't really set up very effectively. They're being surrounded and they're being cut down by a combination of Nar-Rim in melee and Flagrim. Also, my ally does have cavalry in the background. Now, these clan crossbows appear to have been under a fairly large amount of archer fire, which is not really all that surprising. If you see crossbows in range, you're going to want to deal with them, particularly ones that are as fragile as that. What's going on over here? Helmingars. Helmingars are honestly not a terrible unit, but I feel like their usefulness in a field battle is kind of limited, mainly because there are so many archers that are better than them. But honestly, in melee, they're not bad. I mean, they have axes, they have a decent sense of durability, so in this situation, they do actually pay for themselves relatively easily. They're sending in more units. Now, this is where I would say they are just throwing themselves at Rune to try and keep them out in the same way that I am, but you don't have to look at both flanks as the same in this battle. I think they should have fallen back. And over here, I did commit my trolls, and I tried to charge them through this unit, and it did kind of work. I did manage to do a fair amount of damage over here. They did, of course, die off very quickly. I was able to get some sort of damage done to the back of these Rohan Spearmen and Yawling Axemen as well. So the trolls did their work here, because now it means that the Black Uruks and the Mountain Uruk pikes should be able to win, but unfortunately the Tarnistian Guard are sort of attacking the side of the pikes that I've got set up, which is not ideal for me. My catapult ran out of ammunition, so I'm just trying to use them to shore up this area as fodder, as you do. Over here, meanwhile, my other Black Uruks are losing because I committed them against the Marshals of the Red, but they have also got some decent kills of their own. So really the Marshals of the Red are the unit they've committed down here that are most scary, because they do deal the most damage. I'm sending in my other Blackwatch Legion to try and just sort of make it so that this flank doesn't collapse, because it was starting to look a little thin. Meanwhile, over here, that is a big rout by the Yawling Axemen. There's still one troll attacking them in the back, and oh, there goes another break in the wall, so the Rune player is certainly doing a good job at that. The Orc bodyguards are really making some inroads in the middle here as well. I sent some pikes to back them up. Orc bodyguards are very tough, tougher than you might expect, and now It's starting to look like their defence over here is starting to look a little bit thin on the ground. They are attacking me with numerous arrows, but this unit of pikes out here has been shredded by arrows, in fact. And just over here I have committed a unit of blackback berserkers into this sort of flanking manoeuvre they were trying, and the blackback berserkers will 1v1 pretty much shred anything that they've brought to the battlefield. Because I think the Haven Guard of Dol Amroth would probably beat them 1v1, but everything else would not. So really it's going to be a case of they should have saved their catapult for this moment, because they have got a fantastic shot onto me, but they have, and I've managed to flank around them with my other unit of blackback berserkers, and I'm going to be able to surround them. So this is going to cause a massive rout from Rohan's lower tier units. The Dol Amroth units will probably stay in battle, honestly, for a little while, but this is going to cause their defence at the gate to slowly crumble, and they're bringing down more pikes again. This isn't really worth it. You know, when a defence point is lost, you should just say, well, it's lost, we'll reform backwards a little bit. They have a fantastic choke point up here, and they're not really using it at this point. And by the time they do use it, at this rate, it might be too late. I mean, if you look here, the percentage of enemies killed is greater, and at this point in the battlefield, the sort of 60% mark, the attackers should still have a noticeable deficit. Really, it's around the 80% mark where the attackers will often start to rapidly pull it back. But if it's at this point by now, you're in a bit of a bad way. So yeah, the Blackback Berserkers very different. You know, they should have saved their archers as well. Blackback Berserkers are not the most durable unit in the world, and the archers would have traded very effectively with them. And the Blackback Berserkers are so dangerous in melee. And well, over here they've sent more units in. They've sent a unit of Marshals of the Red down here now, which honestly is not a terrible idea, but there's Gamp Rim over here now, and they're getting set up, which means they're not going to trade too effectively. So again, it's not really worth it. So this would be my moral of the day, especially on this map. Know when to fall back in a siege, because otherwise you will end up losing too many men, and the deficit may well be too much for you to pull back. And while looking over here, got these Flag Rim fighting against these Royal Guard. The Royal Guard and Shield Wall are a very, very durable unit. They will do a very good job. One of Rohan's most defensive units. Meanwhile, over here, the Shield Maidens are here now. What are the Shield Maidens doing? Are they attacking? Ah, Camel's Shadow Guard. The Shield Maidens honestly should probably just fall back again. But like, if they insist on using them against Rune, I suppose, well, those are the axes that the Shield Maidens are throwing. The Camel's Shadow Guard is honestly not a terrible target for them to go after, because they're very damaging. The Flag Rim, well, some of this Gamp Rim has been surrounded. The Helm Hammers will do a very good job against them as long as they don't get into formation. Swan Knights have been committed as well. They really are very insistent on not letting us onto the hills at all, but it is also denying them the fighting downhill advantage. It's admirable that they're trying not to let us into the settlement at all. Swan Knights have been committed down here as well. They're trying to get over here, I think, to try and stop my flank. It's really a mess over on my flank of us trying to sort of surround one another, but over here I was able to finish up, so Heavy Goblin Infantry, Black Uruks, and my other unit of Blackback Berserkers have gotten themselves free. These Swan Knights are pretty good, but they will be no match at all for Blackback Berserkers. Shielded Heavy Infantry is what they're basically fantastic at killing. Trying to hold back the Helmengast. These pikes are kind of in formation. Meanwhile, these Marshals of the Red are still fighting. They're still eager, they're just tired. And this Marshals, I haven't really committed anything that would be fantastic against them. The Black Uruks did most of this damage. The Blackwatch Legion will keep them committed as well. When there's this few of them, they're not going to be too much of a danger, especially when they're way back here. If they were within the enemy lines up here, they would be more of a threat. But really, I've just got a mass of orcs, and they now have a paper-thin line, although they do still have a dedicated line here. So it still might have been worth it to keep sending in reinforcements on my side, but it was only worth it if they didn't keep sending men down to the Runic side, because Rune have been really able to open more holes in the wall and just do more effective damage. Over here I have done a lot of damage. Like, the Misty Mountains are very scary when you just use them in a very aggressive sense in a siege like this. Ooh. So they did have some catapult ammunition left, and at this point I was worried. I was like, ah, they did save catapult ammunition, did they? That's not good for me because it means that they can really do some serious damage to my attack, and I was actually a little worried at this point, but as it turned out they didn't have much ammunition left at all, so that was really the most effective damage they would do. Again, not a terrible shot there, they only killed like 4, but really, if they had more ammunition at this point, they would have had a much better shot at killing me. And that, you know, this battle so far has been pretty good for us attackers. Again, these Blackback Berserkers have got a flat engagement against these Swan Knights, so that's good for me. The Swan Knights are pretty good, they will deal some damage, but certainly not against this kind of unit will they have victory. And this unit of pikes is wavering, there are not enough of them. They are sending down some Yawling Swordsmen, 37 of them, 39 Yawling Axemen that are both exhausted, to just try and shore up the line. Again, it's a rather desperate attempt to try and keep me contained at this point. They actually are doing a better job at containing Rune, to be honest with you now, but honestly they've committed so many men down here that they have. Really, I think that this front was where they probably lost it. I think the Runic player opening up a lot of holes in the wall did a good job. This is how you should attack on Edoras, really. And the enemy really did make the error of trying to engage them down here in the wider area. As soon as all of these holes were opened up, they really should have fallen back to here. That does open you up a little bit to the crossbows, but it was more worth it because your archers could shred through the Clan Crossbowman. Over here, the Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen are now committed. They're a pretty good unit. They're not one of the best shot. Well, they are a pretty good shock unit, but I think maybe if their attack was a little higher, they would be one of the top tier units. Like the Harbingers of Castamere are really the better variant of that unit. Some more Gnar Rim over here. The Carmel's Chosen. The Helm Hammers are over here. They haven't really left anything in reserve, and at this point they may as well not, because if they fall back there's going to be nothing really to hold the line with. Meanwhile, I was able to break the pikes over here. Now this sort of ragtag assortment of depleted Dol Amroth men-at-arms, catapult crew and Yawling units are trying to hold back my Blackback Berserkers. The Blackback Berserkers are a really scary unit to face. Again, really the best thing you can do against them is to try and whittle them down at range. They're not the most durable. You know, armour is not their strong point. And trying to engage them in melee, unless you have a very, very strong unit, is not a good idea, because you're going to trade horrendously inefficiently with them. These Swan Knights are still going, so they are holding on for a relatively long time, but they are wavering now in the face of heavy Goblin Infantry, Blackback Berserkers and Black Uruks. But over here, these Marshals of the Red are still going. Still got them occupied with these Blackwatch Legion and this unit of, well, fairly depleted pikes. They will fall, of course, eventually, but I don't really care about these guys. The Blackwatch Legion will win eventually, and they are just keeping them busy, essentially. Got this catapult crew back here. This is my army as a whole, though. I have rather used the blob. Look at the death over here, look. All of the dead trolls, all of the dead units. It was a very brutal fight over here, and they did do a decent job at containing me, and I think had they been a little bit more conservative on the runic front and with their catapult ammo, they could very easily have traded more effectively. But as it is, my army is still pretty darn large. The runic army is starting to look a little bit haggard, but it doesn't really matter because the defenders' armies over here is not looking too great either. These Swan Knights still fighting. Now it looks like they're falling back, which is what they should have done a long time ago, to be honest with you, but they still have a decent amount of Royal Guard. They have a few Marshals of the Red, they have a few Helm Hammers. So it's not a terrible amount of units they've got over here if they form up at the top of the hill and block the runic army. Their real problem, though, is that they don't really have much of an answer to what I'm doing over here, which is charging up the hill with my Blackback Berserkers and Orc Bodyguards, of which there are still a lot. Especially on epic, well, huge unit scaling, the Orc Bodyguards are very, very strong. They have 250 units around, 2 hit points, and they're a very strong unit overall. These units of Shield Maidens, they're trying to keep my units committed as they sort of fall back to the town centre into that final choke point. They aren't going to last very long though. The Dol Amroth player is sending over a very small unit of pikemen. Again, it really smacks of a bit of desperation at this point. Well, down here, there are still Marshals of the Red down here, going after this catapult crew. So this unit of Marshals of the Red have certainly been the enemy's most effective unit at just staying alive, it must be said. But really over here my entire army is just sort of using a brute force tactic, as the Misty Mountains will, with their superior damage dealing capabilities. These shield maidens. I only saw them throw their axes a little bit into the Carmel's Shadow Guard, so you know, the shield maidens are a very strong unit, provided you can use them effectively. Obviously, all javelins have got very limited ammunition, so it really does depend on what target you choose to attack, but they're certainly one of Rohan's most potent tools if you can use them correctly. Some Black Uruks, they're impetuous. Marshals of the Red are falling back, Helmhammers are falling back, so they have officially abandoned the runic front. And Carmel's Shadow Guard and a few units of Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen are coming up to support me. There goes the enemy general. So he had them in a unit of Swan Knights down here, dead at the hands of the runic flag rim. And there are some more Gamprim over here. The runic army has taken a fair amount of losses, honestly. So on that front they did do well, but that was only because they threw their men at Rune. I still believe they would have been better served trying to hold the hills. Again, if you defend in stages, it's fine to defend the gate for a while, as they proved over there with me, but if you hold the fall back and then hold the hills, and then finally fall back again and hold this final choke point up here, that's really how you want to do it. Especially when you're up against a potent infantry force, one that you can't beat with sheer brute force, which is what they were seemingly trying to do. Again, Carmel's Shadow Guard leading the charge. There's some Marshals of the Red, Dismounted Royal Guard, Helmhammers are back there as well, I think. So it's not a bad defense, this, but they are still very, very outnumbered, and the Blackback Berserkers that I have left will still be able to smash through this, especially when they're backed up by the plentiful Orc bodyguards and the smatterings of heavy Goblin infantry I have. There's also some Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen, crossbows, which still have some ammunition, I believe. What's going on here? I still hear battle sound effects, even though there's nothing going on. There are the Blue Wizards.
Our foe has taken control of the city.
So there. Oh, I missed it, but my ally charged his general's bodyguard through the stakes he didn't see, so it actually did turn out to be worth it to put them there. So
Our foe has lost control.
I believe his general's bodyguard. His general didn't die, I don't think, because we didn't get the cutscene, but his his general's bodyguard unit was certainly horrendously cut down. I mean, look at this. Or did his general die? I think, well, his general I think did die, because their general model is the Nazgul, isn't it? The horned Nazgul. Meanwhile over here, this is really just it now, the final push. And at this point it's pretty darn obvious who is going to win. The numbers that we have on our side and the types of units we have are going to be sufficient for us to smash through this. The Royal Guard are good at holding a line like this, but not against this amount of Blackback Berserkers. Still got 2 healthy units, in addition to Black Uruks, and Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen, and Orc Bodyguards. Some Dragon's Wrath crossbows as well, which are pretty good in melee. So I think it's about time we sped this up. And really this was an interesting fight. Again, I stand by what I said on Edoras. It's an odd kind of map, because as the defenders, if you play it right, you can make the attackers pay very, very dearly. But the attackers also can use their own ranged to their advantage, and that's what you can really, I would do as the attackers, is make the defenders work with range. And really, this here, the replay finished here, because unfortunately my American friends unfortunately have internet that is run on potatoes, apparently, because I always have connection problems when playing with them, to be honest with you. But really, I think the Dol Amroth player had already admitted defeat at this point, so the Rohan player was all in his own, and some of his units were wavering and such. So that really is the end of the battle. So let's see. I think we'll just exit. So that is it. Unfortunately, we can't actually view the unit stats because of that. But that was Edoras, and as the attackers, we won. So that really is the lesson to take away from that, I would say, is as the defenders on Edoras, defending stages, because if you try and throw everything at the gates, you're playing into the attacker's hands somewhat, because that's really the only point on Edoras that they can attack you from multiple angles. Other than that, Edoras is basically just one long choke point, and a hilled choke point as well, so if you don't use that to your advantage, you're only hurting yourself, really. Especially considering that the attackers can also try and whittle your defences down with ranged forces and siege as well. I would say as well, as the defenders, you would be better off saving your siege until later on in the battle when the enemy is blobbed up on those hills, because then you can deal horrendous amounts of damage to them. Other than that though, it was a pretty good fight. I enjoy the themed maps and I want to do a few more. A few scenarios as well I think are in order. And I think bigger battles in general across the board are going to be needed. Unfortunately the Discord is always there for that. In fact, I think that most of the people that watch these probably do come from the Discord anyway, but on the off chance that you are not part of the Discord and you watch these, you should really join the Discord, because that's where most of the games for Reforged are sorted, especially now that 0.91 is out. So there's also a good installation guide, I believe, that someone posted a couple of days ago. I might leave a link to both that and the Discord. If I forget, do nudge me in the comments and I will put it in, because the more the merrier on the Discord, you know. As long as more people are available for games, that's always a good thing. And that means I'll be able to do bigger battles more often, I think. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you join me next time for either another battle or perhaps the top 10 worst units in Reforged, which should be a fun one.